To today's episode of the Bhagavatam. We're talking about desire today. And it's a very important part of our society. It's what makes everything run. Our economies, our countries, our GDP, everything is around our desire. Our entire life is around our desire. We want this and that and the other, a house, a car, clothes, electronics, technology. We want more and more of everything that we like. What the other person has, I want. What I have, you want. See? And then the world goes around like that. The world's economies have learned how to exploit our desires by advertising, by marketing, and catering to them. And year after year, we fall for the latest fashion, technology, or trend that everyone is rushing headlong towards. We feel as if the next thing is what I need. It will satisfy me. It will make me happy. It will make me feel good if I have this. If only I had this. But like a mirage in the desert, nothing can quench our desire. Desire never seems to go away. You fulfill one desire, another one pops up. You fulfill that one, another one comes up. Christmas is around the corner. People will get the things they desire. But that's not going to stop them from desiring more. It's a non-stop, never-ending sequence of things that we keep on desiring from childhood to youth to adult to old age. It never stops. Desire keeps the world turning around. It keeps us locked into this world. It keeps us engaging in karma. It keeps us trapped in material existence. If only we could overcome desire, well, something else might happen. Maybe we'd become free of karma. Maybe we'd become free of the cycle of birth and death that has us in its grip. Now imagine if God stood before you, the all-powerful, the Almighty, who can give you anything you want. And He said to you, ask me for anything. Anything you desire shall be yours. What would you ask for? Money, success, recognition, fame, power, love, or something else? When the infinite, unlimited source of everything wants to bless you, would you ask for something temporary, some temporary material thing that will be lost at the end of this short life? And if you did you make a wise decision? Did you think it through? What if by becoming one with, or connected to, or part of the divine or God, you could have everything your heart desires and even more than you could imagine for eternity? Would you prefer the temporary wealth of one life or the eternal wealth that no one can ever take away from you? The choice is yours. Let's explore this idea further through the wisdom of the wisest people that lived on this planet. So we're going to read from the Bhagavatam today, and we're on the 7th Canto. 7th Canto, Chapter 10. Up till now we'd heard about Prahlad, the young boy, 5 years old, and how his father Hiranyakashipu had tormented him. and tried to even kill him because he was a devotee of God, because he loved God and was devoted to God. And his father was an atheist, an asura. Asura was the term for a person who was against God, hated God, with a passion in this case, and could not accept the fact that his son loved God. So ultimately, this person, Hiranyakashipu, because he had been trying to kill Prahlad in so many different ways, and because the father, Hiranyakashipu, could not be killed, the Lord had to descend in a very unique form known as Narasimha. So here's a picture in where Narasimha is killing the demon, the asura, Hiranyakashipu. And he had to take this form because Hiranyakashipu had the blessing that he could not be killed either on the earth or in the sky, either by human or by animal, either by weapon or by the hand of anyone. So he killed him with his nails, putting him on his lap, so he was neither on the earth nor in the sky. He killed him. He took the form of a half lion, half human. All of this to circumvent the blessings that Brahma had given to Hiranyakashipu, and by which he had become almost immortal. So finally, after the father was killed, Prahlad, the young boy, was so moved by this experience that his supreme Lord, the supreme Godhead, the supreme being of all, had incarnated for his sake in this incredible form, just to bless him. And this is that scene in which Narsingha now calms down and blesses the young boy Prahlad. Now, keep in mind that this is a very unusual incarnation of the divine. Vishnu appeared in this form very specifically. This is not, his normal form. He appeared in this form only very specifically under these circumstances to bless the child Prahlad. Now, the question was, and this is the question that we started off with, Narsingha offered Prahlad anything that he might desire, but the young boy said he wanted nothing. Prahlad said he considered material things, money, fame, etc., to be impediments on his spiritual path. He said, "My dear Narsingha, my worshipable Lord, I was born in an atheistic family. I am naturally attached to material enjoyment. Therefore, kindly do not tempt me with these illusions." Aren't we all in that same situation? Aren't we all? We were all born into families like that, right? Families that didn't understand our spirituality or God. Families that may have been part of some religion, but that religion was very often just a means of getting our desires met through God. God was just the way in which we solved our problems. We got our needs met. We fulfilled our desires. So Prahlad is saying that I was naturally attached to material enjoyment because of the family that I was born into and the world that I was born into. So please don't tempt me with these illusions. I am very much afraid of material conditions because lust, desire, kama, which is the original word, is the root cause of material existence. I desire to be liberated from material life, and it is for this reason that I have taken shelter at your lotus feet. One who desires some material benefit in exchange for serving you cannot be your pure devotee. Indeed, he is no better than a merchant who wants profit in exchange for service. Please think on this very carefully. When you go to God to fulfill your desires, then is that action pure? If somebody becomes your friend just because of what they can get out of you, if somebody falls in love with you or claims to love you because of what they can get out of you, then is that pure love or is that motivated in some way? Is there a motive that they have? Now, especially if you're extremely wealthy, and now somebody tries to be your friend because of what they can get out of you, it's even more so, isn't it? So that's the point Prahlad is making. He says, a servant who desires material profits from his master is certainly not a qualified servant. Similarly, a master who bestows benedictions upon his servant because of a desire to obtain a prestigious position is also not a pure master. In other words, a master, someone who gives things to his servants just because then the world will think, he is such a good, master, or such a good employer, or such a good this, because you look at all the things he gives to all his employees. But he's doing it from a place of ego. And that is not pure. And the person who goes there and works for this person because of what they're getting out of them is again caught in that same cycle of material desire and longing. We're all in this. We're in this same rat race, this same racket, this same infernal web. And we think this is normal, but someone like Prahlad comes along and wakes us up and says, hey, this is not normal. This is not good. This is not right. Now, I'm not saying you should go to work and not get paid for it. I'm talking about our relationship with God. When you go to God with a motive, then that is not pure. When you go to God because of what you can get out of God, then that is not pure. Prahlad says, I am your unmotivated servant, and you are my eternal master. If you want to bestow a desirable benediction upon me, then I pray that within the core of my heart there be no material desire. Why would Prahlad want this? Because as I was saying earlier, when there is no material desire, when you are satisfied with whatever you have, when you are happy in whatever situation you're in, you're not turning to God to give you something or to solve your problem or to fix your issues. You're just there because I love you, because I want to be with you. Isn't that how you would like to be loved? And that is how God would like to be loved too. So he says that all I ask is that you take away all material desire. Now keep this in mind, that desire doesn't go away. Desire will always be there. But he's wanting that the material desire be taken out of his heart. But what will remain? What will happen to desire? Now we begin to desire God and only God, the supreme beloved, the supreme being becomes the object of our desire, and we want nothing but him. Then Prahlad says something very interesting. He says, when one is able to give up all the material desires in his mind, he becomes eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. What? This was very confusing when I first read it. I was like, what does this mean? There must be some mistake here. When one is able to give up all material desires in his mind, he is able to become eligible to possess wealth and opulence like yours. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, he says, Sridhar Swami comments, Bhagavat Vaya Bhagavad Saman Aishwarya. In the spiritual world, the servant is equally as opulent as the master. The servant of God is engaged in the service of God as a servant or a friend or father or mother or conjugal lover, all of whom are equally as opulent as he is. Now that's actually very simple logic. If someone is serving you as a personal servant, they would live in your house, like your if you had a maid servant, or if you had someone who was a full-time servant who took care of your household, they would be living in your house. They would enjoy all the opulences of your house. They would eat the foods you eat, right? They would be given the clothes that you wear. And they would live in the lifestyle of their master. Similarly, when we want nothing but God, and we are then with God, either in this world or in the spiritual world, then we live with the same abundance as God lives. Even in this world, you live with that feeling of abundance. I remember this time when I was writing, and I was asking God, I said, why is it that I have to go through all these struggles for money, and there are people in this world who have so much? Why don't you just give me some? Like, what's the thing here? What's going on? Why do I have to be struggling so much? The answer I got is this. He says, what is your relationship with me? And I said, I love you. You're my everything. He said, then when you love someone, this is the answer I was getting as I was writing. When you love someone, then what is mine is yours. In other words, I, God, am telling you that what is mine is yours. Everything in this world is mine. Therefore, everything in this world is yours. Now walk around everywhere. Look at all the objects of your desire. Look at everything you want. And then say to yourself, this is mine, and this is mine, and that is mine. Why is it mine? Because it belongs to my beloved. It belongs to my dearest Krishna. He is the possessor of everything. Everything in this world belongs to him now, belonged to him in the past, and will belong to him in the future. As a human being, I cannot say that. But what is mine is yours, he says. And it's the same idea here that Prahlad is speaking about. Prahlad says the master and servant are different, yet equal in opulence. So we are not God. We are different. And yet at the same time, once you have embraced God fully, you have become one, then you have become one with God. When Christ spoke in the Bible and he said, I and the Father are one, he did not mean that he is God, as many would like to believe. He always said, I am the Son of God. He always said, Father who art in heaven. He never spoke of himself as God. But when I and the Father are one, what that means is that we are different. There is I and there is the Father. There is I and there is God. And yet we are one. And Chaitanya said this very beautifully. He says, we are simultaneously one with and different from God. One because we have taken away the separation. Just as a bride comes into her husband's home, and there is now no more separation. What is his is hers, what is hers is his. Right? So when you make yourself that united with God, that much one with God, then the world is yours. And yet nothing is yours. Right? This is the beauty. You take away material desire, so there's no sense of trying to own anything. It is already owned by God. There is nothing for you to own further. You cannot own that which is already owned by you. If it belongs to God and you are truly devoted to God and truly surrendered to God, then that which is God's is yours. And if it is yours, then you cannot go and own it. You cannot own that which is already yours. Nor can you take it if it's meant to be there, if it's meant to belong in that person's place or that home, whatever. You cannot go and just grab it or take it. Any more than if a master gives something to his servant, that now belongs to that servant to be taken care of by them. The master doesn't go back to that servant and take away what he's given them. So you cannot now go to someone just because, oh, it's mine, I can go grab it. No, there's no grabbing here. Nothing belongs to me and everything belongs to me. This is the beautiful paradox. Narasimha, the half-man, half-lion incarnation of Vishnu, then said to Prahlad, my dear Prahlad, a devotee like you never desires any kind of material opulence, either in this life or in the next. Nonetheless, I order you to enjoy the opulences of the asuras. Now, the asuras, we've been talking about this earlier, are a demonic race. And by demonic, we do not mean people we have weird faces, and some of them do, but for the most part, they're atheistic, as are many of the people in this world today, who claim that this world is theirs, the possessions that they have are theirs, but in fact nothing is theirs. It was there before them and it will be there after they die. The world will exist with or without them. Anyways, he says, I want you to enjoy the opulences of the asuras, because he was born in an asura family, in an atheistic family. So I want you to enjoy the opulences of the asuras in this material world, acting as their king until the end of this creation. It does not matter that you are in the material world. These are instructions we can all take. It's not matter that we are here. It is not that we have to get out of here to go to the spiritual world or heaven or this or that. Learn to find heaven here and now, in this world, right here where you are. And what does it mean to be in heaven? It doesn't mean that I believe something. It means that I experience a freedom from the mind, from suffering, a freedom from desire. And when that happens, then even though you are in the world now no longer has any power over you. You are no longer controlled by either your mind or your desires or your ego. You are here and yet you are free. That is the goal. So Narasimha is telling Prahlad, it does not matter that you are in the material world. You should always continuously hear the instructions and messages given by me and always be absorbed in thought of me. Why does he say this? When you are listening to those instructions, when you are listening to those messages, when you are absorbed in thought of God, you become free from this world. You actually rise to a higher vibrational frequency, and you are no longer affected by the world. The world still goes on. Good and bad things still keep happening. The weather changes, the economy changes, you will age, all of that will happen, but you will not be affected by it. That's the beauty. You need a higher vibration to free you from a lower vibration. That's the essential idea. You need to desire God to become free of the desire for this world. You cannot just give up desire. You cannot just give up thought. You cannot just give up feeling. You cannot just give up the world. You must replace that with something better. You cannot give up the world of forms and then have nothing to replace it with. We are beings of form. We live in form. We are attracted to forms. And so when you become attracted to the form of God, the name of God, you can become attracted to the pastimes, the activities of God, then you are filled with God. So he says, always be absorbed in thought of me, for I am in the core of everyone's heart. All you need to do is give up your karmic activities and worship me. Again, it doesn't mean you stop action. When you say give up all karmic activities, means stop working in a way that you think that you are entitled to now enjoy the fruits of your labor. This is important. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as well. You are entitled to work, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Meaning, when you work and you generate money, that money belongs to God. Everything already belonged to Him. And it now, as you generate it, it again belongs to Him. So use it in His service. And that service may be in terms of taking care of this body and the bodies of your family. That's true. But recognize them as such. Give to others what you have earned. Contribute to the world. Contribute to, not only to your family, not only to yourself, but also to saintly people, also to religious institutions. Wherever you find there is good use of that, contribute towards that. In this way, you will become free from karmic activity, which means free from attachment. Attachment. What is attachment? Attachment is the feeling that this is mine. I worked for it. This is mine. That's the illusion. When you understand that nothing is mine, no one is mine, even my children are not mine, my spouse, my partner is not mine, that mine is the cause of my suffering. The very thought that something is mine is the cause of my suffering. I do not suffer if my neighbors, something happens to their body or to their loved one or to their property or their car or their house. I feel empathy for them, but I do not suffer the way they suffer. I suffer when something happens to my house or my car or my body or my loved ones. I suffer. So it is mine that is the cause of the suffering, and we must let go of that. Whatever is happening, everything is under the will of God. And you understand, whatever is thy will, I replace my will with thy will. Narasimha continues, while you are in this world, you will exhaust all your good karma by feeling happiness. By acting piously, you will neutralize bad karma. So the idea is to burn up all our karma, good and bad, so that we may become free from the bondage of this world, from having to come back into this world again. Then he says, being fully freed from all bondage, you will return home, back to Godhead, back to me. One who always remembers your activities and mine, and who chants the prayers you have offered, will become free in due course of time from the reactions to material activities. Then Prahlad says, my dear Narasimha, because you are so merciful, I ask for only one benediction. My father at the time of his death was unnecessarily angry at you, falsely thinking that you were the killer of his brother. He blasphemed you and committed sinful activities towards me, your devotee. I wish that he be excused for these sinful activities. In other words, Prahlad is asking for forgiveness for his father, a father who tried to have him thrown off a cliff, had tried to have him trampled by elephants, tried to have him burnt in fire, tried to have him thrown into boiling oil, tried to put him in a pit of snakes to have him killed by those, and yet nothing could kill him. Prahlad is asking forgiveness on behalf of his father. Narasimha said, my dear Prahlad, O great saintly person, your father, along with your entire dynasty, going back 21 generations, has been purified. Whenever and wherever there are peaceful, equipoised devotees such as yourself, who are decorated with good qualities, that place and those dynasties are completely purified. Meaning, if you develop those same qualities like Prahlad, if you purify your heart and mind and become a devotee of God, a lover of God, then not only will you be purified, but your 21 generations back will be purified. All of them will receive liberation from their sins and freedom from their misdeeds. That is the blessing of having someone who is a saintly person in your life, or being that person for others. My dear child, your father has already been purified just by the touch of my body at the time of his death. Nonetheless, you should perform the funeral ceremony, the Shraddha ceremony, so that he may be promoted to a planetary system where he may become a good citizen and a devotee. So now, what is this indicating? It indicates that, yes, you've been freed from your bad karma on all your horrible actions, even someone as terrible as Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad. But he must now move to a better situation where he can become a good citizen and a devotee of God. He is now, his slate has been cleaned, but he must still act in a way where he now starts to elevate himself towards God. Okay? Narsimha then says, now take charge of your father's kingdom, sit upon the throne, rule in accordance with the Vedas. Keep your mind fixed upon me and do not be disturbed by materialistic activities. Those who follow your example will naturally become my pure devotees. You are the best example of my devotee, and others should follow in your footsteps. At this point, Narsimha turns towards Brahma, who had also arrived there. Brahma is known in the Vedas to be the creator of the universe. God doesn't personally create. God doesn't personally destroy. God is not personally taking care of things or managing or maintaining things. As Vishnu, he does. As Brahma, he creates. As Vishnu, he maintains. And as Shiva, he destroys the creation at a certain point and then creates it all over again. But at this point, Brahma had come because he knew of this incarnation of Narsimha, of Vishnu, coming in this incredible form. So he had come to offer his prayers, and then now Narsimha turns to Brahma and he says, "O great one, just as it is dangerous to feed milk to a snake, so it is dangerous to give benedictions to demons, who are by nature ferocious and jealous. I warn you not to give such benedictions to any demon again." You see, it was Brahma who gave the blessings to Hiranyakashipu, because Hiranyakashipu performed great austerities, and it was shaking up the entire energy of the universe. And so Brahma had given him these benedictions that he asked for, that he could not be killed in the day or the night by any weapon or by any human, all these kind of blessings that he'd asked for, because he couldn't directly ask to become eternal, because that was not possible while you're in this world. So he'd try to circumvent that whole thing and get away with being hopefully eternal. So Brahma nodded and worshipped Narsimha, and after that Narsimha disappeared. Now, what happened to the father of Prahlad? Prahlad's father and his brother, Hiranyaksha, so Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, had both been killed by Vishnu now. Remember that they were originally doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, in other words, doorkeepers of the gates of heaven, of the spiritual world. Beyond the heavenly planets is the spiritual world. They were gatekeepers of that. They were already in spiritual form. They were already liberated souls. They were already free from the cycle of birth and death. And yet they'd been cursed by the four Kumaras, the sons of Brahma, to take birth in this world. And then Vishnu had intervened, and then they'd reached a compromise, and they'd agreed that these two, Jai and Vijay, would come to this material world and take 3 births as asuras, as demons. The first was when they came as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. Now these 2 had been killed. 2 more births remained. In future times, they came as Ravan and Kumbhakaran, both of whom were killed by Ram, the incarnation of Vishnu as Ram. We'll be talking about him shortly in the 9th canto. We're on the 7th canto now. And then finally, they took birth as Shishupal and Dantavakra, continuing their enmity towards Vishnu. They were supposed to be here in this material world as the enemies of Vishnu. They were supposed to be here creating great havoc in this world. This was all part of the plan. This was all part of the Leela. Vishnu was going to come for his own purposes. God was going to incarnate for his own purposes. And he wanted a story. He wanted Leela. Leela is pastime, story. So he wanted some opponent, some people who was going to hate him, someone who's going to fight with him. And there's going to be this grand drama. That's how it was set up. You see, just as much as you like going to the movies and just as much as you like a good story, you don't want just a goody two-shoes story, like just everyone's all nice and sweet and lovely and charming and beautiful and all of that. You want some, story there. There's got to be some action. There's got to be some. So say it all, whatever is within us, part of that, there is a version of that is with God. He too wants that. And so he sets it up in such a way that these incredible stories occur. He sets it up so that through those stories, his devotees may be blessed. And through all of that, he may be known. Because after all, we are people who like good stories. And it is through these stories that we learn. It's not enough to just tell you a bunch of philosophy, because you're going to get bored and you're going to lose interest, because that's too damn serious. So he makes it fun. He makes the learning fun. He makes it all so that it sticks in our mind. So those were the three incarnations of Jai and Vijay, right? As Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, the sons of Diti, those have been killed now. And of course, they thought that the Supreme Being who is situated in everyone's heart was their enemy. They were playing the role full out. It's like, full out, in character. Method acting is what they used to call it once upon a time, I think. And then, of course, Kumbhakarna and Ravan, full out, hated Vishnu, wanted to kill him, and wanted to kill Ram. And then later on is Shishupal and Dantavakra. You will hear about all of that. We'll be coming to it as we go along. Pure devotees who incessantly think of God, of the Supreme Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, receive bodies similar to his. This is known as Sarupya Mukti. You get the same form as God. Although Shishupal, Dantavakra and other kings thought of Krishna as an enemy, they also achieved the same result. Meaning, they too got Sarupya Mukti, which means when they finished their stuff out here, they got the same liberation, as in they got a form just like that of Vishnu, just like that of God. So not only do you enjoy the same wealth and abundance and everything that God has, but you can also have the form just as God has. That's incredible, isn't it? And it goes on to say that even the kings who supported Shishupal and Dantavakra and acted as enemies of Krishna attained salvation at the time of death. It is said that when Krishna would kill them, their soul would leave their body and come and merge with his body. And in this way they would receive liberation, and then they would go to the spiritual world and get a form just like that of Krishna, or rather of Vishnu. Because they thought of the Supreme Lord at the time of death, they received spiritual bodies and forms the same as his. Just as worms captured by a black drone obtain the same type of body as the drone. It's a very interesting thing, right? You eat some food, you eat, even if it's a fruit or a vegetable or an animal, you eat it, it now takes the form of your body. This is a great example. That food that you've eaten, the banana you ate, the broccoli you ate, now appears as you. It has taken this form. Do you see? So in much the same way, when he killed them, or they were killed by him as part of the pastime, as part of that Leela, they got liberation, and in that liberation they attained a form just as God's. Then it goes on to explain that Krishna is the source of the impersonal Brahman. So what does that mean? The impersonal Brahman is the energy of the universe. Every atom, every molecule, every quark, every tiniest bit of this universe, the energy of this universe, that is God. That is the expansion of God present everywhere, in everything. He's also present in everyone as the Paramatma, the great soul. And he's also present in the spiritual world in his full glory, his beautiful forms. So he says, yeah, Krishna is the source of the impersonal Brahman and the origin of transcendental bliss sought by great saintly persons. One who hears and chants this narration about his omnipotence is certainly liberated from material bondage without fail. At this point, Narad turns to Yudhishthir. This is the questioning had begun from there, from Narad. And Yudhishthir, there was this conversation going on. And Narad starts telling him another story. He talks about a demon called Maya Danava, who was very expert in mystic knowledge. So again, this demon was also a very enlightened being. He was a wise being, born in a demonic family. And in fact, the Pandavas had called on him to construct Indraprasth. That I know to be true. So this Maya Danava, and I'm just going to call him Maya from now on, Narad points out, reduced the reputation of Shiva. In that situation, Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, saved Shiva. Now, we've talked about Shiva earlier, so I will not try to explain Shiva to you, but I will tell you this little story here that is that. The demigods were very powerful. The devas, the demigods, were very powerful, and they repeatedly defeated the demons, the asuras. One time, the asuras took shelter of Maya Danava, this Maya person, the greatest leader of the demons. Maya prepared for them 3 invincible flying dwellings that were like UFOs, which would be invisible to the devas. I imagine invisible UFOs that were like dwelling places. So imagine them being like houses that could fly like UFOs. They're talking about this thousands of years ago. We're reading it now. But this was written thousands of years ago. About 3000 BC it was written. And before that it was known already. So they were talking about UFOs back then. I came across something about Maya Danava. I was trying to research about this, and the little bit I could find out was this, that some people think that he's the one who's responsible for the Mayan civilization. I have no way to verify this, so I'm just going to tell you a little something. They also believe that he was the master architect of Indraprasth. That part I know to be true. And the triple cities of Tripura, which apparently is Atlantis, and the Lanka palace, which was the palace of Ravan, and that he was a descendant of Maharishi Kashyap and ran away to Patal, which is in Peru. And he's also the creator of the Mayan calendar. Again, I have no way to verify this last little bit that I told you. But let's move on. If any of you have any further research on the subject, please write it in the comments or in the chat, and I'd love to know more. That is, if you've researched it properly, please do that first before letting me know. All right. Due to this, the Asuras became undefeatable. So now they were in these mansions that were flying like UFOs and could also be invisible. Now from there, they could attack the Devas, the demigods. The Asuras could attack the Devas without being seen from their flying vehicles. And therefore, the Asuras became undefeatable. They began to spread havoc in the upper planetary systems, in the heavenly planets. The rulers of the heavens went to Shiva for protection. They pleaded that they were about to be vanquished. The most powerful and able Shiva assured them, "Do not be afraid." He then fixed his arrows to his bow and released them towards the 3 residences occupied by the Asuras, the demons. The arrows released by Shiva appeared like fiery beams emanating from the sun and covered the 3 residential UFOs, which could no longer be seen. All the demonic inhabitants were killed and fell down. Maya then placed the bodies of these asuras into a nectarian well that he had created. And when their bodies touched the nectar, they came back to life and became invincible. Endowed with great strength, they got up like lightning penetrating clouds. Seeing Shiva very much aggrieved and disappointed, the Supreme Godhead Vishnu considered how to stop this nuisance. Then Brahma became a calf and Vishnu became a cow, and they drank all the nectar in the well. The asuras could see them but couldn't stop them. The great mystic Maya Danava also became aware of this and understood it to be the unseen power of providence, which no one could prevent. Vishnu then equipped Shiva with all the paraphernalia necessary to fight the asuras, bows, arrows, chariot, etc. Shiva then, with his arrows, set fire to the UFO residences of the asuras and destroyed them. The devas then celebrated and showered flowers on Shiva. But if you notice something very interesting in this story, once again we see how Vishnu comes in a form appropriate. He came as a cow in this case to drink up all the nectar. In the earlier case, he came as a half lion, half man. In the earlier case, when it was Hiranyaksha, he'd come as a boar. All different situations, different forms, according to what was required. And a fun way to play around. You see, he's not limited. God can come in any form he likes. He is not limited. We may say, no, God has to look a certain way. He can't. Or either we say, no, he can't even be a person. Some people say that. It's just an energy. Either they say there's no God, or that God's an energy, or that God has to look a certain way. He's got to be dignified, got to have a beard, got to sit on the throne, got to, But no. He enjoys taking on different roles, different possibilities, according to what's required. He's having fun. Shiva was then known as Tripurari, the annihilator of the three dwellings of the demons, because he burnt those dwellings to ashes. Shiva then returned to his own abode, and Vishnu, in his original form of Krishna, appeared on earth as a human being and performed many uncommon and wonderful pastimes. We will hear about all of that in the 10th canto. Everyone can be purified simply by hearing about his activities from the right source. Now remember, this conversation was happening between the king Yudhishthir and Narad, and Yudhishthir, being a king, wanted to know a little bit about, how do we create the right kind of society, and how do we, how kings think about things like that, and how do we create a good social order. And so he wanted to know more about the social and spiritual system known as Varnashram Dharma. Now, there's been a lot of criticism with so-called caste system of India. And I must say that a lot of that is valid, because the caste system, as we know it in the past few hundred years, has been a corruption, a distortion from the original. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Chatur varna maya srishtam guna karma vibhagasaha. Chatur varna, four varnas, four divisions of society, four spiritual divisions and four earthly divisions. Chatur varna maya srishtam. I have created these divisions of society. Guna karma vibhagashaha. The vibhag, the divisions, are on the basis of guna. Guna means your aptitude, and karma, based your actions. Guna karma vibhagasaha. So now you'll begin to understand that just as we in modern society look at the aptitude of a certain person, and therefore they go to a certain college and then get a certain kind of training and then a certain kind of career, the same thing existed during Vedic times. It was not based on birth. But that was the corruption that happened a few hundred years ago, where Brahmins, priests wanted their children to be priests, and rulers wanted their children to be rulers, and business people wanted their children to be business. Now, the problem with that is Sure, you can want whatever you want, but if the person doesn't have the aptitude, doesn't have the actions, then they're going to be a ridiculous business person or a ridiculous administrator, ruler, or a ridiculous priest because they don't have the qualities. They don't have the aptitude. So Yudhishthir is wanting to know more about these things. What are those qualities? Narad says, I have heard from Narayan, Vishnu. See, where do you get the knowledge of these things? From God himself. When he appeared as the son of Murti and Dharma, that is, Nara Narayan had appeared way back. He is the supreme being, the essence of all Vedic knowledge and the root of all dharmic principles. On the basis of these principles, everything is satisfied, including one's body, mind, and soul. So how do you know that the teachings that are being brought to you are actually valid? He says here, on the basis of these principles, everything is satisfied, including one's body, mind, and soul. You will find that when you live according to these principles, you feel satisfied. Your body stays healthy, your mind stays healthy, and your soul begins to prosper. Your soul begins to come alive. That is when you know that you're following the right path. So then he goes on, Narad goes on to explain. He says, these are general principles to be followed by all human beings. So these are some basic 30 qualities that he's going to talk about. Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, that is fasting on certain days of the month, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong, control of the mind, control of the senses, nonviolence, celibacy, charity, reading of scripture, simplicity, satisfaction, rendering service to saintly persons, gradually taking leave of unnecessary engagements or things to be done, observing the futility of the unnecessary activities of human society, remaining silent and grave and avoiding unnecessary talk, considering whether one is the body or the soul, distributing food equally to all living entities, to both men and animals, seeing every soul, especially in the human form, as part of God. Then, hearing about God, chanting, that is speaking about God, remembering the activities and instructions given by the Supreme Godhead, rendering service to Him, performing worship, offering respects and obeisances to Him, becoming a servant, a friend, and surrendering one's whole self to God. These 30 qualifications must be acquired in the human form of life to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he goes on to talk about the different types of people. So the Vedas break up society into 4 parts. Brahmins, the priests, Kshatriyas, the warriors, Vaishyas, the business people, and Shudras, these days we call them the blue-collar workers, like you will go to the factory who take care of serving the service industry. That's another way of putting it. So he says the Brahmins have 6 duties: worshipping God, studying the Vedas, and giving charity. Yajan, Yajan, Patan, Patan, Dan, Pratigraha. Right? So they must study the Vedas and teach the Vedas. They must worship God and teach others how to worship God. They must study the Vedas. They must give in charity and also receive in charity. The symptoms of a Brahmin are control of the mind. So these are symptoms now being given. A person can claim to be something, a Brahmin, a priest, or whatever. What are the symptoms of such a person? Nowadays, you have all these very charismatic leaders, gurus, or speakers that are there. They form great churches and temples and institutions and what have you. But what are the symptoms of a truly evolved person, on this path, on the spiritual path? He says the symptoms of a Brahmin are control of the mind and senses. Is their mind, are their senses under control? Austerity and penance. Do they engage in austerities and penances? Are they clean? Cleanliness. Satisfaction. They're satisfied with whatever they have. Forgiveness. Do they hold grudges or do they easily forgive? Simplicity, knowledge, mercy, truthfulness, and complete surrender to the Supreme Godhead. Now, the Kshatriyas, the warriors, the ruling class, that is the administrators and the warriors, so they're put into the same group as Kshatriyas. They must be unconquerable in battle, patient, charitable, control their bodily necessities, be forgiving, be attached to the priests, the Brahmins, and be always jolly and truthful. The Vaishyas, the business people, must endeavor for advancement in dharma, that is to say, religious principles. Dharma, artha, kama, three things. So in other words, they must advancement in dharma as in religious principles, in economic development, and in enjoying their senses, because they are business people. So they're going to be working, they're going to be earning money, and then they're going to want to enjoy that money afterwards. But then as you enjoy it, you begin to see that, but it comes from God, and now you use it as an offering to God. They must especially have expertise in earning money. They must also be devoted to the devas, the demigods, the guru, and the supreme being or God. The Shudras, that is the final class of people, the workers, the laborers, must have a respectful service attitude towards everyone. They must be clean, free from duplicity, not steal, and always be truthful. If one shows the symptoms of being a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra as described above, even if he has appeared in a different class, in other words, he was born in a Brahmin family, but has the behavior of a Shudra, then he is a Shudra, or a worker, or a laborer. Or if he's appeared in a Shudra family, as in the family of a working class person, but shows the symptoms of a business person, or shows the symptoms of a ruler, administrator, warrior, then he should be allowed and accepted as that. It's very clear. And yet, because people were not allowed to read the original texts, they were misguided. It then goes on to talk about the duties of a woman towards her husband. She must serve her husband and follow his path, be favorably disposed towards him as well as his relatives and friends. She must dress nicely with clean and attractive garments and decorate herself with golden ornaments for his pleasure. Keep that. And then, of course, this is a time in which women were homemakers. They took care of the family, they took care of the home, so keeping the house pure and clean with aromatic incense and flowers, and so on, being modest, truthful, controlling the senses, speaking in sweet words, and engaging in the service of her husband with love according to time and circumstance. A lot of this has been looked down upon by the movement for feminism, where they wanted equality. But unfortunately, all that equality has been earned, has been proven. And I would say women have proven that they can be even better than men. Granted. But where has that led us? What has it done to the family? What has it done to relationships? What has it done in terms of satisfaction, overall satisfaction? There has been short-term gain, but long-term pain. So that's where the Vedic teachings become very useful. And that's where we learn of a certain way of living that is more harmonious with our true nature. The truth is, at this life, I may be in a male body, but in another lifetime, I may have been in a female body. I may have been in an animal body. I need to learn how to live according to the body that I'm in. Because otherwise, I create havoc around me. And if I can live according to the dharmic principles, the dharma of that body, the nature of that body, of that particular time that I'm in and particular age that I'm in, then I will be more in alignment with the situation that I'm in. Otherwise, I'm fighting against my very nature. So you'll see women who've become very masculine, for example. They're fighting against their nature. And it's very difficult for them to get along with a man, unless the man now can be very feminine. But if he is very feminine, then they don't respect him. It becomes a no-win situation. So now you have women who are with a man but very dissatisfied. So then you have affairs. Either the woman's having an affair or the man's having an affair. He finds her too masculine, she finds him too feminine. They fall apart. And then what? And they keep trying to find the other one, the better one, the better one, the better one. Keep going from one to the next, to the next, to the next. No one's ever satisfied. No one's ever happy. And that's why we have guidelines like this here. I'll leave it at that. It's time for us to end, so we'll wind up here. But the point it tries to make is that in following these guidelines, the woman is following in the footsteps of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and she will surely return home back to Godhead with her devotee husband and live very happily in the spiritual world. Again, keep in mind, we are not the body. We are not this bag of blood and bones and hair and so on and so forth. We are the soul. And the soul is neither masculine nor feminine. Right? So it is not about trying to fight for one cause or the other. Not that the Brahmin is better than the Shudra or the man is better than the woman. No. If we are identified with this, then we are not on the spiritual track at all. Nevertheless, we must work according to the situation we're in. If our aptitude is that of a, let's say, a business person, then you act according to that. If your aptitude is that of a serving person, then you act according to that. If your aptitude is that of a Brahmin or a teacher or a spiritual guru or guide, then act according to that. If your aptitude is that of a woman, if you're in that body, then act according to that. Of course, if your temperament, even as a woman, is that of a man, well, then act according to that. Go by what is your true nature, not from a place of following some false ideology that is being taught in the world or that is popular, but that isn't working for you. Check and see, does it really work for you? Because when you are in alignment with who you are and what you are at the core, you're not acting from a place of rebellion, you're not acting from a place of some kind of made-up standard, then you will find yourself at peace and you will be in harmony with yourself. And that is what is important. All right, I'm going to end with that. And I look forward to your questions now. Let me take a look and see if there's been any questions anyone's written. And if you have any, please ask. If you haven't written yet, please do put them on the chat. And I'd be happy to answer your questions. All right, so no questions so far. Those of you that are on the Zoom call, if you'd like to just come in and speak something, I'm happy to have you do that as well. Let me know. Last chance. Any questions? I've said some controversial things, so perhaps you need time to think about it. Keep in mind that these recordings are there on YouTube. They're in the playlist called Spiritual Wisdom Bhagavatam. And you can always find them and you can add your questions to the comments if you've not been able to think of anything right now. But if you do think of something, please write down your questions in the comments and I would be glad to answer them anytime. All right, then in that case, since there's nothing here, we'll end for now. Take care. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna.